So this painting is actually not really finished. It's really a draft of a picture of a roller coaster, and I thought it's very symbolic for a startup because our life in a startup is very much like a roller coaster.
It is.
Yes, indeed.
So Ori, it's great to be back here at Sedona Systems in Tel Aviv. We found some great technology here here in your offices, harking back to the good old days, and we're going to talk about the cutting edge technologies you've been developing as well. But also see there's a lot more of your own artwork. You're a great painter outside of work, and a lot of your artwork is on the walls here at the Sedona offices. And it seems that visual element that you bring to the company is also showing in the way you've developed the interface of your product to the users. So visualization, that's a great thing, great part of the company's development.
Indeed, that's a very good observation. And I think it's crucial to visualize networks in ways that are perhaps not the way that people see them today, because these are very complex networks.
Okay, excellent. Now, the way things are evolving in the industry at the moment, Sedona's been talking about multi-layer control for quite a number of years now, but there's now that conversation is now happening alongside orchestration and network and service orchestration. So can you give us a little bit of insight as to why these two topics are now being talked about in the same conversation at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. When we started a couple of years back, the view that architects and standard bodies have drawn was a very simple view of the network. You had the network elements down below. People were focusing a lot on the interfaces to the network elements, and the whole SDN control system was drawn as one big box.
Right.
Over time, this simplified view had been refined, and people have started drawing controllers for each network layer. So a Cisco controller for Cisco gear, Juniper controller for Juniper gear, and a multi-layer controller on top of this. Mm-hmm. And this made a lot of sense because you want to allow the system vendors that own the network elements to innovate. You want Cisco to be able to add segment routing to their portfolio, for example.
Sure.
Now, what we're seeing now is that even this box of multi-layer control is now split into two parts. There's a network controller which controls the network, is in charge of the network, and then there's a service orchestrator on top of it which is in charge of instantiating and controlling services. And that makes a lot of sense because it adds the IT to the equation. So it's not only the network guys looking at this control system, but also the IT guys. And IT guys are interested in services, in interfaces to the IT systems on top.
How is Sedona evolving as the market evolves? What role are you playing then in this new era of orchestration and multi-layer control?
As you know, our focus initially was to build a multi-layer control system that really talks to the routers, all routers, most of the optical gear, and coordinate between the two layers to achieve an optimized multi-layer network. Now, when you take the view of how do we interface to the IT systems, we've built interfaces, northbound interfaces from our controller to be able to feed those IT systems with whatever information they need, whether it's inventory information about the network or enabling those service orchestrators to set up services in the network.
What kind of developments have you made in terms of the Sedona platform to be able to help operators move to that next stage? What have been the next steps in your evolution?
Yeah, one of the key tenets of our solution was that you don't have to wait for SDN to happen before you can start reaping the benefits of it. So from the get-go, we developed interfaces to SDN controllers as well as to management systems of all sorts. EMSs of different network gear. We even talk to network elements directly when there's no other way to communicate with the gear. So really not waiting for SDN to happen before adding value, but rather bridging the gap between today's systems where SDN is not there to the future where SDN controllers will be prevalent, and our job will become a lot easier. So that evolution from today to tomorrow's SDN-enabled network is a key principle that we've designed our system around. Now, this was the platform as you know it. What we've added more recently is the ability for operators to use the system on a daily basis for even more mundane tasks. You know, an operator wants to see whether the network has sufficient diversity. They don't want to sift through a very complicated network view, but they want somebody to simply tell them, you have this problem in your network, now go solve it. What we're adding now in the solution is also the ability to act on these anomalies in an automated fashion. So basically, you see something wrong in your network, click a button, a fix button, and the tool will fix the problem for you.
Okay, so you've got some analytics capabilities, you're providing visibility into the network, and then you're adding automation capabilities as well.
Yeah, I think the way to look at it is in phases. Again, we're trying to build a solution that allows people to start from a very simple solution that still provides value to them and add more capabilities as they feel more comfortable with the technology. And the key is that you want to add value at each step of the way to fuel this growth. So the starting point is, as you said, just visibility. We were very surprised. I was certainly surprised to see how many service providers don't have a good view of their entire network. They see islands, but they're in the dark in terms of how these islands connect to each other. So that in itself adds a lot of value. We've now added analytics to it, which basically allows people to write very simple scripts that look for anomalies in the network. So I'm a planner, I've designed my network to do certain things in a certain way. Have the operations guys actually build the network the way I'm expecting it to be built. The reality is it's not always the case. So bring out those issues for me to understand. And also the other use for these scripts is to provide insights into the network. How can I plan my network differently to better fit the actual needs of the network? So these are analytics tools. The next step beyond that is automation, and even automation is done in a stepwise fashion. So starting with simple automation, let's just fix a few attributes that are wrong in the system. Provide routers with information about shared risk groups from the optical layer, for example, so it can make more intelligent decisions about the routing of IP traffic. Reroute optical paths so that they better fit the needs of the IP layer.
Right.
So this is small automation. And then the, if you will, the holy grail of multi-layer control, the big automation features, which is around multi-layer restoration, restoring traffic using the optical layer as well as the IP layer, optimizing the network as a whole. So that's really where the network works in a different way than it does today.
Well, let's go and take a couple of look at these the new tools that Sedona's developed.
Absolutely.
So Ori, which application are we looking at on the screen here?
So we're looking now at the NetFusion Explorer application, which is our user interface. It basically shows you the network at two layers. The top blue layer is the routers, and the bottom layer, the boxes, are the optical gear. What you can see here is, well, you can obviously look at just the IP layer, and that's what the IP guys normally see, or just the optical layer, which is again what the optical guys would normally see. But none of them has this combined view of the network.
And this is the visibility that you were talking about?
And this is the visibility that I was talking about, indeed. I can click here on an optical link, like this one, and it turns orange, and you see all the IP paths in green that are riding over that optical link. So if that optical link fails, all of those paths go down.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's already multi-layer information that's not very easy to get otherwise. Or I can click on this IP link here from Washington to Denver and see how it goes through the optical devices through Chicago and Kansas City, etc. And moreover, I can look at the traffic that runs over that IP link. So let's look at the LSPs. Pick an LSP from, I don't know, Boston to Denver, for example. And you can see here on the side view here that this LSP starts from Boston, goes through a couple of routers, then goes through an optical path between Boston and New York, goes up to a router in New York, then goes again through the optical layer to a router in Washington, and so on and so forth until it reaches Denver at the other end. clearly you can't show a few thousands of nodes in this view in a way that anybody will see anything, right?
Right. Okay.
The view will turn black. So, what we can do is we can have a hierarchy, and basically let's look at North California here. As I zoom in, you see that North California, being one site on this view here, will split into a bunch of sites that are more regional sites, if you will,
Right.
San Jose and San Francisco, and that way you can understand a large network as you zoom in, right? Very similar to how you would see a map in Google,
Yes.
for example. Let's perhaps now look at some of the new stuff we've added and we discussed earlier, with, for example, analytics. So I have here a bunch of applications. The Explorer is what we've seen just now. Let's look at the dashboard. So dashboard is one place where you want to look at when you come in the morning, see whether the network is still fine, right? So you go to the dashboard, and our dashboard shows a bunch of boxes, each of them representing an anomaly. This is an example for a dashboard for the planners to understand whether the rules have been respected by operations. So for example, you see here that there's one LSP, a pair of LSPs that should be diverse from each other, but they actually have, they share a risk in the optical layer. They share an SRG. Or you see a congested IP links, or IP links that should have been diverse and are not diverse from each other. And these are these little scripts that I mentioned earlier that you can write, and you write the script, you upload it, and you have, whatever you want, another anomaly on the screen. And you can explore through this. So let's look, for example, at this LSPs with common SRG. Let's look at the actual report. So you see here one line, it could be many, many lines, but showing a primary LSP, a secondary LSP, and here's the shared optical links between those LSPs that should have been diverse. What I want to show you now is, if you will, the next step, what I called small automation. I should find a better term for it.
No. I think that's, so people will understand that.
so I know that there's a problem. I have a fix button. What does the fix button do? I can just click it, and it will run an application that synchronizes the SRGs that are taken from the optical layer with the IP layer. So what we've done now is we've provisioned the routers with these SRGs, and the routers will realize, oh, these two LSPs are not really diverse, they're going through the same risk, and will reroute traffic.
Right, okay.
So that's where, let's go back to the map, that's where we've automated, if you will, the provisioning of these attributes in the IP layer. Because this environment involves virtual routers of different sorts that actually run the code, it might take a bit of time, but let's revisit the dashboard. Oh, and you see this problem does no longer exist. The routers have gotten this new information, have converged, have rerun their control plane, rerouted the LSPs. We have now rerun the script automatically, and you see the result here. So a lot of steps are involved in this very simple operation from a user perspective.
Okay, excellent. Great to see you again, Ori, and thanks very much for bringing us up to speed with what's going on at Sedona.
Thanks for coming.